lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information, ladies and gentlemen. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, you guys. I only speak to people who are active in the transportation industry at the end of the day, because we need to put information out there from the people who have done what you're looking to do or who are actively doing what you're trying to accomplish as well, so we can give you information that you can apply, utilize, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life out there. It's also one of the many reasons why I proudly fly this American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I'm going to help each and every one of you guys live your American dream as well. I got a very special guest for you guys today that I'm going to bring on here shortly. He knows all of this legislation, of all of the articles that I break down and talk all that shit on every single day, and he's going to actually explain what a lot of this stuff means, and what to really look out for in this coming year in 2023, as well as what's to come in 2024. But before we do that, you guys, I got to give a shout out to my friends over at VHub, vhubapp.com. Whether you're a broker, carrier, or a shipper, we all need access to trailers at some point in time. And the best part about with what they have, ladies and gentlemen, you get paid to move these trailers. That's right, money on top of the revenue that you can get by loading these trailers out. So what they have, West Valley City, Utah, heading up to Calgary, Alberta, you get $1,550 to move these trailers. And then also, if you're looking to get in the door with an enterprise level shipper, a lot of them require drop trailers. You now have that capability here with VHub, you guys. Paragould, Arkansas, going up to Mississauga, Ontario, 1,000 Canadian to move that. You guys, there's 150 drive-ins down there. They also have another 200 up in Stoughton, Wisconsin, needing to get over to Milton, Ontario, and that's 1,000 Canadian on that as well, you guys. So again, create that drop trailer pool. It's one of the biggest things that needs to happen to get in the door with some of these shippers. It's one of the biggest obstacles you get as a freight broker. They only work with assets. Well, now you technically can. And then finally, you guys, they have Milton, Ontario to Moncton, New Brunswick for 400 Canadian. So hit them up, you guys, vhubapp.com. My friends Xavier Campos and Stacy Steen, they'll be in the audience here. Just do me a favor. Let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Going to get some shout outs here. Zach Williams, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. He's with SPI Logistics, you guys. If you want to become a freight agent, take control of your financial future, hit him up. Tono Lippy, thank you. I appreciate that. Tracy O. St. Clair, good morning. Kat Akins, good fucking morning to you. And Cameron Lisk, happy Trucking Thursday. I'm a massive fan of dad jokes, so happy Trucking Thursday kind of works for me. Paul McClellan, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Andre Stewart, good morning. Bo Jolly, no relation to Chris Jolly, but he's my brother. I actually used to work with him at XPO back in the day, and you don't necessarily run into a lot of last names of Jolly out there. Callum Orm, good fucking morning to you as well. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Michelle LeBlanc, thank you for your support. Zach Lonegren, what's up, my man? The only face that would make me love an orange shirt. Yeah, you know what? It happens, you guys. Xavier Campos, the Freight Coach Nation rocks. Thank you for joining in. Sonny Sharma, good fucking morning, orange shirt gang. Louis Claudio, let's go. Thank you, my man. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to bring him up, you guys. My man, Chris Burroughs with the TIA is in the house. Chris, what's up, dude? How are you?
Good, man. What's going on? Appreciate you having me on the show.
No, I know. I texted Chris yesterday. I'm like, hey, surprise, you're going to be on my 500th show. I didn't know what it was until yesterday. And he sent the Chris Farley emoji of like putting the sun. I don't know if you guys remember that show, but yeah, man, that was great. And I thought, dude, it's so fitting to have you guys come on, you know, because like the TIA, amongst others, were like one of the earlier supporters of literally everything that I was doing back in the day. So it was fitting to be like, all right, I'm going to have you guys come on and talk about all the legislation and all the fun stuff that's going on out there.
Yeah, DC's a happening place, and happy to chat about it. I'd actually be offended you haven't asked me to be on a show yet. It had to be a 500 show to get on. So
Dude, I don't know how it didn't happen prior to this. You know, because do you still have the hat up in your office over there?
I do. Yeah, right up here.
See, yeah. Dude, just put it on right now, man. Let's make the Freight Coach official here. So big conference coming up here in Orlando, you guys, April 19th through the 22nd, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Orlando, Florida. You guys check it out. I'm going to be down there. I'm going to be doing my live show down there. There's going to be a bunch of different education sessions going on out there. And frankly, you guys, it's getting caught up on what's going on in the industry. And then frankly, like what's affecting the industry and what to be on the lookout for, because at times we get so consumed with our day to day, we don't remember like, oh, hey, there's actual laws that are put in place that are going to affect how we operate. So double brokering, as always, Chris, is like, that's the hottest of hot topic out there. If you even post, I hate double brokering on social media right now, you get 15,000 engagements. I think that's why everybody does it all the time. But in your guys's, from your perspective, what is the actual definition of a double broker?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. And we get this quite often from folks. I think there's some confusion out there in terms of, what is double brokering? Kind of our working definition, because, double brokering is not legally defined anywhere.
Yeah.
Kind of our TI working definition or maybe case scenario is that, hey, you got a load for your shipper customer. You engage with a trucking company or somebody that may be masquerading as a trucking company to move that freight. Unbeknownst to you, that load gets rebrokered out to another carrier. And that's where, typically our guys don't come back to us with concerns unless something goes wrong. Obviously, if the freight makes it to its end point, everything is fine. That's kind of the I wouldn't say ideal situation, because we don't want any double brokering. That's when when something goes wrong, that it kind of gets sideways. Conversely, so that's kind of the double brokering scenario. It's really not knowing kind of where who has control of the freight, who the ultimate carrier making the delivery is, and really who's that. Sometimes we've seen a lot of fraud kind of in that initial carrier space. Is who is this carrier that's fraudulently taking the load. Conversely, where I think oftentimes it gets confused with co-brokering, where you have a broker who knowingly engages with another broker who may have capacity in a certain lane that they just may not have access to, whatever the case may be. There's typically a written contract between those two brokers. They know what the relationship is, and therefore, for us, that is co-brokering. And obviously still legal to do. MAP 21, which was signed into law back in 2012, the reauthorization bill, did not outlaw double brokering, did not outlaw co-brokering. There were some articles put out there by some folks saying it did not. What it was really going after was double brokering, because I'm sure we'll get into here in a little bit. There are still obviously some major concerns with double brokering, obviously with increasing the last few years, even though, like I said, MAP 21 was signed into law over 10 years ago. It's only getting worse and worse. So,
and that's the thing, man, is I think like ever since I've been in the industry, it's always been hey, watch out for this. Let's make sure. This is why we vet our carriers. This is why we ask questions and everything. But it seems like over the last probably 3 to 4 years, it has been an absolute onslaught of double brokers who are coming in. And I've voiced my displeasure with the FMCSA frequently on this, because to me, they're not doing anything they're asking more questions. Like, what do we do? Our hands are up in the air about it. But and I use this prime example of that fatality last year in Colorado, where the driver's brakes fried out and he hit and killed 4+ people. That trucking company reincarnated the next day, man. The next day under brand new authority, and was out there driving. Like, how is that possible? And how can the FMCSA look at that amongst so many other case studies that are readily available within their own data that shows that they reincarnate? It's so bad. There's they use the exact same information. They just change the spelling of their name, it seems like.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I think the last few years have really been, you talked about the annual conference. We're going to host a session. I think I titled it like the Freight Apocalypse, double brokering. It really kind of feels that way, and in many ways. But the last few years, I don't know if it's because of COVID and increasing volumes, and I think a lot of it has to do, unfortunately, there's just a lack of enforcement from the agency. These criminals, and as we've seen kind of an increase in the criminal. I spoke earlier about it kind of originated back in 2012 when we went to Congress seeking this language. We were seeing a lot of carriers doing this who may have taken a book book a capacity and couldn't fill the trucks for it, hey, they double brokered out to their buddies, whatever the case may be. I think they kind of wised up to that and saw that the law was put in place. But the scammers are really kind of the criminals that are operating out there are really the bulk of what we're seeing now. And they know the agency is not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And there are no repercussions for this. So, if you're a criminal, why would you, if there's going to be no security at the bank and you can just walk in and steal money on a daily basis, like what's stopping you from doing that?
Yeah.
So it's getting bad. And we're trying to make that case with the agency, to your point of the safety side of things. The FMCSA has pointed out to us, as we've worked with Congress and worked to them to try to get a spotlight put on this issue. They pointed out that there is this administrative law judge ruling back from 2019 that kind of bars their hands from assessing civil penalties on companies for commercial violations. And we're kind of like, this goes beyond a commercial violation. This is a safety problem.
Yeah.
It's a huge safety problem. We don't know who these carriers are getting vetted, what their safety profile is. And obviously, as you pointed out, there are real world examples out there of folks that are getting injured or killed, unfortunately, tied directly to double brokering. So we're kind of like, get off the sidelines a little bit. These aren't commercial violations. These are safety violations and need to be addressed.
Yeah. And that's like the biggest, because I said this on my show yesterday, is I think the biggest issue that our industry is up against, it's not rates, which a lot of people are talking about right now. It's the fact that you can go unchecked without repercussion, not once or twice. Like, this happens all the time, man. It's like, we see this very often. And, because again, it's like, oh, now we just change the spelling of our name, or we just change our email address and that stuff gets pushed through. And it's, and it seems like the agency again is like, oh, well, we're going to remove ourselves from any and all repercussions here, because that was essentially the Supreme Court case ruling against like with C.H. Robinson, right? Where the FMCSA said, hey, it's your job to vet the provider, not our job.
Correct.
And that, to me, I think is another major threat to the industry. Now, I do agree with the FMCSA. You should be vetting your partners. You should be vetting the carriers that you source to do your freight. But if the governing body, who's supposed to have all the oversight over everything, is allowing that, I'm going to use quote air quotes here, carrier to remain active, whose fault is it really at that point?
Sure. It also brings into the argument of, the what data are we supposed to look at to vet these carriers?
Yeah.
Obviously, you have 92% of trucking companies are unrated because they're using an antiquated physical audit system to give carriers a safety rating. That's obviously got to change. That's another legislative priority we're working on currently to clear up a lot of the confusion in the carrier selection process as relates to carrier safety ratings. But I mean, the agency has its limitations. It has resource issues. We get that. It's the federal government. I know that's the excuse that every agency uses, and there's some truth to that. But one thing is we've talked about this with NTIA, with our membership, and done a few educational things on it. Is one thing you can do is, for instance, look at the email address. FMCSA currently doesn't require companies to put an email address into their profile, which is kind of crazy to think. And, we raised this issue with them recently, and, they're like, hey, it's in our plans in the next 2 to 3 years. And it's like, dude, we can't wait 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Do it now. And they're like, well, we're having a hard time doing it now because, we've got this legacy IT system that doesn't have, that can't take this additional data source. And it's like, I mean, I don't know what sort of legacy IT system that would be. But that's pretty troubling. I remember a few years ago, I was talking with them, and a lot of our members were noticing a lot of the original MC numbers were being re-released.
Yes.
And I can't remember whether they 8 or 9 digits. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was like, why don't you guys just add another digit? And like, oh, the system won't allow us to do that. And it's just like, are you kidding me? I mean, a simple Excel spreadsheet you can add is, what
Yeah.
IT system are you using?
Dude,
So-
and that's exactly it, man. Hey, FMCSA, I know you guys listen to us because I see my metrics, but I got a software system for you could use where you can use 7 and 8 digits in there to identify your carriers. But no, dude, I think that right there, though, is another reason why so many people get so upset about this stuff.
Sure.
Because it's like, I'm paying in to my taxes. I'm paying in for all of this stuff. And then you're essentially holding your hands up in the air saying, well, we're not going to do anything about it. But if you are late one day on something, we're penalizing you for that. You're going to get a 15% penalty or whatever else that looks like. So I think like for me as a business owner, man, it's the absolute double standards that are out there of, hey, we can't do anything about it, but we're going to enforce you to do this, even though we're not adhering to those exact same laws and rules and regulations that we're putting out there.
Sure. Yeah. And we have constant conversations with the agency about this and a variety of issues. And I truly do believe they do care about this. They do care about this issue, and whatever the case may be, resources, or legal reasons, their hands are tied on this. But I feel like within the last maybe year or so discussions with them, especially with the new administrator coming in, Robert Hutchinson, I feel like we're making good headway, at least kind of rising this issue to the top. We'll ultimately see what happens at the end of the day, but I feel like we're getting to a better position with the agency. So,
all right, man. So I mean, we could talk about double brokering for probably 5 straight hours, but like, there's another one that's on the docket as well, and that's about the differentiating factors between what is a dispatch service and what is a freight broker. Because I think like I've read it, man, and I did go to public school, so I'm going to throw that disclaimer out there for everybody right now. I went to a state college as well, not a private university. But it seems like the language that is out there are very few discernible differences between what a dispatch service actually offers compared to what a broker actually offers out there. And what is the main thing that you guys are really fighting to have that clear separation out there that says that, hey, they're kind of doing the same stuff we are?
Yeah. I mean, from our guys, again, this is another issue that popped up in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
We want a level playing field for all entities that are brokering freight. These dispatch services say they're operating under the guise of a bona fide agent of a carrier. I mean, if you read the definition and the Code of Federal Regulations, it's pretty clear that if you're handling traffic allocation on behalf of more than one motor carrier, you probably need a license as a broker.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, that's the way they're operating. They're operating under that definition is what they say. But at the end of the day, what's the definition of a brokerage? Arranging transportation for compensation.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue that these dispatch services are not arranging transportation for compensation without, and of course they don't have authority. They don't have the financial requirements, the BMC 8485 in place. There's no kind of safety net from those bond or trust for carriers to file on if something were to happen, non-payment issues, et cetera. So what this is a big issue for us as well. We're fighting pretty hard to make sure that this class, either gets brought in as brokers. And again, this is not a membership thing. We're not trying to drive membership numbers up. We just want a level playing field, because a lot of our guys are like, if they can operate as dispatch services and broker freight, like hell, we'll just drop our authority and we'll just do the same thing and have no liability.
Yeah.
In terms of what we're doing. Of course, that's not a good answer either. But that's kind of the reality of what the industry is looking at. The guidance the FMCSA put out was a good start. It didn't quite nearly go as far enough as we wanted.
Yeah.
And we had several good conversations with the agency about it. The small owner operators see a lot of value in these dispatch services. They provide, in their words, they provide very good back office support, a good job of sourcing loads for them while they're out operating their truck and doing their good work. But for us, either get them registered as brokers or create a new class of entity called a dispatch service.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, man, I'm right there with you. Like, I'm not anti-dispatch services by any stretch of the imagination. I think that they do provide a valuable service out there to carriers. But my thing is they're doing the exact same thing that a broker is, except for we're going towards shippers with our service. Yep. They're going towards the carriers. There's a transaction that does happen regardless of how you want to spin it. There is a transaction that happens. I'm just asking for, again, like an equal playing field here, because if I'm going to be required to have a bond, if I'm going to be required to be registered with the FMCSA, if I'm going to have my safety or my rankings out there and everything through the FMCSA, I would expect the exact same thing to be out there from the dispatch service, because I want to minimize, this is a tough pill for some people to swallow. The criminals break the law no matter what. Doesn't matter what you throw out there. But I think that the overwhelming majority of people who are doing this the right way, they want this exact same protection, right?
Sure.
And I think that's where this needs to happen, because there needs to be a very clear difference of what the dispatch services are doing as opposed to what the freight brokers are doing as a whole. And I don't see it. I see like it's almost the exact same definition, but they just dropped out one word and replaced it with another.
Right. Yeah. And as we dug into this issue even further, we found a lot of these dispatch services are not even based in the U.S. And they're not shy about it. I mean, you can look at, you know, you can look at their Facebook page and, you know, they're like, hey, we're hiring freight brokers. You know, we're headquartered in whatever, you know, whatever country. For us, you know, one thing legislatively we're currently working on, you know, right now is putting some language in place through the defense bill that would bar foreign dispatch services from handling DoD or other sensitive freight, hazmat, food. That's a big concern of ours, not only from a national security perspective, but sorry, I'm getting lit up here. But
Is
you know,
that Ann telling you to stop talking? Stop talking.
Yeah, it's not Ann. but you know, we had a member recently who had a whole truckload of meat stolen. It was a dispatch service, I think, based out of Croatia. And you know, fast forward, I think it's about a month ago. No one has any idea where the meat is. You know, a falsified, you know, destroyed record was brought forward. We have no idea if it's entered re-into the supply chain. What happened to it? We have no idea. Obviously, insurance is paid for it, and the shipper moved on. But that's pretty concerning. It's pretty alarming. And you know, what other types of freight, as it relates to DoD side of things, are these folks moving? And do we want certain nations that may not be, you know, super friendly to the U.S. knowing where some of our tank parts are going to be, or parts for Air Force One? We had a member who was doing that for a while, moving those parts. Origin, destination, freight type. That's pretty problematic. And again, that's a bipartisan issue that, you know, Republicans and Democrats can kind of rally behind for the good of the nation. So that's something we're working on now. As kind of just a part of our overall kind of strategy of trying to get these dispatch services kind of registered with the agency.
Yeah, because, you know, I just think like there are a lot of, you know, it's, you know, same thing with the double broker and everything. There are a lot of like real things that go on that are going to affect your business. And to me, my main concern with a lot of this stuff, Chris, is it's always the person who doesn't get paid for the work that they did, right? And these things need to be nipped upstream so it doesn't get down to that, you know, because there are so many. I always think about the truck drivers, the owner ops, the 2-3 truck operations that are actually hauling this freight that aren't getting paid for it. Yeah, you know, and then these security, like, I'm not a big fan of Big Brother overstepping anything at all, but we need rules in place to help protect the little guy, because 97% of this industry is small business, man. A non-payment of $10,000 or $8,000, that puts them out of business in 30 days if they don't get that. And there needs to be steps in place for that. And, you know, when it comes down to the dispatch service as well, it's like, I don't like, as a broker, when I'm being reached out to by a dispatch service, I don't like the, oh, hey, we'll try this MC. Try this MC. Are they really operating ethically in that regard? Where how many trucking companies that they represent? And this is just a real world example. This isn't an accusation of this is what happens all over the place. A real world example that I've experienced multiple times is, oh, try this MC. That's they're cousins, or they're whatever. How do we actually, does that carrier whose authority is actually being used in that instance, are they even aware that that's happening?
Right.
And there's just so many of these little things like this, man, that pop up that are so detrimental to the overall. There's so many ties to this, man. Because then you know, we were talking before we got on air. Then you talk about nuclear verdicts and everything else, rising insurance costs. I personally feel that it can all be traced back to the double brokering, and like, because I personally feel like that's the biggest threat to our industry. I truly do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. Double brokering, nuclear verdicts, these are all reasons why trucking motor carrier insurance is going up. My broker insurance is going up.
Mm-hmm.
These are problems that are plaguing the industry for sure. Yeah.
So we only got 5 minutes left. This went by super fast, but what's up for the rest of this year, man? Like, is there any legislation that you guys are going to be bringing to the table and introducing here? And what's something that we can look out for? Yeah,
it kind of ties everything together. But a piece of legislation we've been working with a few members of Congress on was introduced a couple weeks ago. It's something that I certainly know TIA members are familiar with. It's called the Motor Carrier Safety Selection Standard. It's a bipartisan bill sponsored by Mike Gallagher from Green Bay, Wisconsin, go Packers, and Congressman Seth Moulton from Massachusetts. It's a common sense safety bill that clears up the confusion in the carrier selection process. It does two things. One, it establishes an interim motor carrier safety selection standard. As everyone knows, right now, you don't have to check a single thing when you're selecting that carrier. We think that's problematic from a safety side of things. And kind of, Chris, to your point earlier, like, you should be doing some vetting. Mm-hmm. So there are some minimum checks in place. One, you got to ensure the carrier is properly registered with FMCSA. Two, you have to make sure they have the proper insurance in place. And three, you have to make sure they haven't been placed out of service at the carrier level by FMCSA. And again, that's not just an unsatisfactory safety rating. There are multiple different things through the, I believe, the CVSA handbook that can place a carrier out of service, not paying fines, new safety audit, et cetera. So while that interim standard is put in place, the second piece of the legislation would really go after the heart of the way that the safety ratings are giving, like I talked about earlier. It's still done by a physical system. We would like to see it shift to something of data, preferably. But whatever the agency deems is necessary. 92% of trucking companies, like I mentioned earlier, are unrated. Yeah. That's horrendous. Let's just be honest. That's laughable. And again, the agency has limited resources. I think they told us they had like 4 investigators. We met with them last year. Obviously, they're not touching the 400,000 or roughly active trucking companies that are out there. So you got 92% carriers unrated. And, we every time a truck goes through a weigh station, gets pulled over, cited, whatever the case may be, positive reviews, all that information is fed up from the states to DOT. They've got all this data. Build an algorithm that works, that's fair to industry, which, by the way, is not, we don't want anything to do with CSA and SMS. That's a relative system. We want an absolute measure where carriers are ranked against themselves, not ranked against peer groups. President Obama tried to do this back at the end of his second term. And, from an association, kind of our typical stances, we don't like burdensome regulation. This is actually one piece of regulation that made a lot of sense. That's why we fully supported it. Unfortunately, it got kind of put on hold for a while and never resurrected. So we're pushing for this legislation pretty hard. It's one of our top priorities. In addition to really increasing the safety profile and bar within the industry, it would provide, a lot of clarity and provide a lot of, clear, removing a lot of the conflicting information that exists out there on what constitutes a safe carrier in the selection process. We have a federal standard we can point towards until this rulemaking is completed and giving us more assurances to know that, hey, this is the group of carriers that are safe to use and those are not. The Obama rule, I'll wrap up real quick. The Obama rule, the last piece it did was shifting to that system of data, but also eliminated the confusing 4-tiered safety rating process and or sort of rankings that currently exist, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, conditional, and unrated. It said either you're safe to use or you're not. So by default, if you're not unsafe, you're safe, which is perfect. Get rid of the gray area that folks like to feed on for a variety of liability reasons, and then just drives our guys nuts in terms of selecting these folks. And how many small carriers of diverse background are coming in the industry that are getting passed over because I can't use those folks. They've only been in the business a month and liability reasons I can't do it. That's what we're trying to get at the heart, and we'll keep pushing with the legislation. And to next exit logistics point here, I wish we had a system to find carriers that are the real victims so we can try and match it up and take care of the actual carrier. Fake factoring companies, everything. To me, it's about protecting the people who are doing this job the right way and not lumping them into a category that they can't fight
out of, because that thing about, hey, I'm a newer company. I was a newer company once too, and people gave me a chance. There needs to be something in place that protects these entrants into this industry that are doing everything the right way, that have everything in mind, because they deserve to make a living as well with this. And eliminating the gray area is what I think is like, that's a phenomenal step in the right direction. Chris, how can anybody reach out to you if they have any questions for you personally or the TIA or anything like that?
Yeah, all of our information's on the TI website, tinet.org. Feel free to go over there. My email's on there, phone number. Reach out to us on anything. We're happy to help.
Perfect. Well, that's it today, you guys. 500th episode is wrapped up. And like I said, we're just getting started here, you guys. We are going to continue to push and fight for the right information to get out there for everybody. Carriers, dispatch companies, brokers, it doesn't matter, you guys. We want to see people remain profitable. We want to see the right people get rewarded for the jobs that they're actually doing out there, and protect us from the criminals who are putting our livelihoods on the line. Every single day that this stuff goes on, you guys, it's our livelihoods that are on the line, and we're going to continue to fight this shit every single day and put the right information out there, you guys. But that's it for today. Chris, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon. I don't have any